Gasper, what's your current temperature on the Red Sox? Where are you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're in real trouble. I just look at their lineup most nights, and the players who are out there, both in terms of prospects who are young or young major leaguers, and then guys who are backups or 4A players or fringe major leaguers or journeymen, they are fielding a AAA lineup most nights, like a lineup more suited to Worcester than the American League East. I look at that, though, and it's hard for me to put that on the manager. I mean, I was listening to, our good friend Matt McCarthy earlier this week. I think he was filling in for Mazz, and I would have thought, like, they're just, they're just Casey Stengel away from being a 100-win team. I don't look at it that way. This is a really flawed roster. Look, Cora's not having a good year. There's no question about it. But there's not a lot of great options out there. And I look at this team, and you can see it in real time. The Red Sox are one of those teams, and a lot of the analytically oriented teams believe this now, that player development, player programming, player reengineering can happen at the major league level. And you're seeing that in real time with their players. You look at some of the young guys, like Cedar Rafaela, when they brought him up. Well, what was the issue? He chases too much. Has he solved that? Nope. Christian Campbell, what was his issue? Well, he doesn't really have a position. He's not great at second base. Mazz identified early his throws aren't great. Has he fixed any of that? Nope. That hasn't changed. Tristan Casas. Oh, by the way, I love when Casas gets lumped in with Bregman. Like, whether Casas got hurt or not, they needed / we're going to have to look for alternatives at first base the way it was. He was batting 182 with a 538 OPS when he got hurt?
Yes.
I mean, this idea that, like, oh, my God, they lost Tristan Casas and between him and Bregman. No. Those guys are in completely different categories. Whether Casas, and it stinks he got hurt, and I don't think he was going to bat 182 all year long. But if you look at his track record, he really has one transcendent half of a season to his name, which was the second half in 2023, where his OPS only trailed Matt Olson, who led the majors in homers that year with 54, Ronald Acuna, who was the NL MVP, and Shohei Ohtani, who was the AL MVP at that time in the second half of that season. Those were the only players that had a higher second half post-All-Star break OPS than Casas. But other than that, like, he's never come close to that again. So when I look at their team and I look at a guy like Casas, again, before he got hurt, defensively, the knock on him was he's a little shaky. He has bad pre-pitch setup. He's not great at first base. Did that get fixed?
Nope.
No. So do you maybe think that some of the reluctance to bring up Roman Anthony is that maybe Breslow or someone else realizes all this that you just laid out, and that bringing up Anthony could potentially further expose the grift that is Driveline? Like, he gets up here, he's been raking in Worcester, everyone wants him up here, add power to the lineup. He gets to the big club, and all of a sudden, he can't hit crap because he's on this Driveline program, and all of a sudden he sucks.
Yeah, I don't think it's, that's a good point, Jim. I'm not sure they necessarily think like that. I feel they put him in a different category than the other prospects. He is the favored son, the crown jewel. So to your point, and there might be some psychological legitimacy to what you're saying, they definitely want him to hit the ground run. He seems to be protected in a way that the other guys are not. It's like, oh, Christian Campbell struggled in spring training, isn't really ready defensively. We're just going to throw him out there. Rafaela chases too much. Well, he's great on defense, so we'll just ride with that and fix it on the fly. Meyer was hitting really well and is a good defender, so I think he was pretty major league ready, as major league ready as you can be. I mean, it's just a different league. It's a different, part of development. And I thought Sean McAdam had a really good story that I saw in Mass Live where he was talking to Alex Cora and talking about this element of having to be in a situation where you're trying to win and develop at the same time. And Cora said to Sean, it's trying to win as many games as possible, but also teaching the game. That's really hard, and I think those two things are in direct conflict. And I don't think there's a lot of managers in Boston who could do that successfully. I just don't.
Chris, do you think Cora believes in the organization?
No.
So this is, occurred to me today then. Why did he sign the contract?
I was just going to say that. Yep, go ahead, Chris.
Why did he sign the contract?
Maz, you might know better than I. I mean, I don't know this. I just feel like, again, much like they sort of have indicated to us with the messaging that it's going to be different. There's now extreme urgency. We're in a different phase of the sustainability blueprint. We're going to contend. And they did go out and get Crochet, and they signed Bregman, which that was a signing that Cora wanted, and they got Chapman. So I do think that probably similar to the messaging that we've gotten from the team, they probably gave him similar messaging that the building part was kind of over. And they might have even believed that to a degree. But when you watch their team, you just see there's so many young players who are still works in progress. It doesn't mean they're never going to be good. Look at Jarren Duran, the path I never would have thought Jarren Duran would be All-Star Game MVP, which is what he was last year. But it just takes time. And that's one of the flaws in this plan, Mazz, I've said from the beginning, is that they kept pointing us to when the prospects are in the majors. And I looked at it and said, no. It's not when they're in the majors. It's when they're fully formed as major league players. And that could be 3 years after they get to the majors.
Right. Well, so, Chris, I was just going to ask you, do you believe that young players, and I know you touched on this, do you believe that young players can be developed in the major leagues?
No, not when you're trying to do it with multiple. In other words, if you're just integrating, acclimating one or two here into a winning program, sure. But when you're trying to do what they're trying to do, I think it's too much.
Okay, so I set you up there because the answer is yes. The answer is yes if you do it one at a time.
Agreed.
If you try to do all of them at once, you get what you have right now. This is why when they were at their peak and they integrated Jacoby Ellsbury or Dustin Pedroia or John Lester or Jonathan Papelbon, they came in bit roles. They were introduced into the major leagues. They learned the life of a big leaguer to begin with. But then beyond that, they also learned the game on the field in a step-by-step kind of process. So that by the time year 2 came around, they were now ready to be reliable big league players, and they had gone through that indoctrination period. They have effed this thing up so royally, it isn't even funny. I have one other question for you, because in the cut we played, John Heyman said something to the effect of, they're 6-15 in one-run games. Do you believe that one-run losses are a fluke?
No, I don't. I mean, look, there is some variance and element of luck. Sometimes you're subject to the, vicissitudes of victory. But when I look at the way they play in terms of they don't adjust their hitting situationally. I heard Breslow across the street on Thursday talk about they're open maybe to playing more small ball now. And also the way they run the bases. Marcelo Meyer getting thrown out at third. How about Rafaela not picking up that he couldn't go to just running into that out?
He didn't know there was a guy there till he literally slid into him. His head was so down and he was so out to lunch. He did not know that Connor Wong was standing on third base until he quite literally popped up on his slide and went, "Oh, you're here too." He didn't say that. I made that last part up. But he slid into the base, Mazz.
He's out to lunch a lot.
He slid into the base.
It happens a lot with him. He's out to lunch a lot.
So, but is any of that the manager? The poor fundamentals, the fielding, the base running, is any of that on Cora in your mind?
Some of it is, but I also think if somebody comes up and they're deficient in those areas to the degree that I've seen from the Red Sox, not just this year, but the last couple of years, that, it's very difficult to fix that on the fly. Like, that's what spring training is for. That's what the minors are, hey, you come up, we need you to work on this. We're sending you back down to the minors to work on it. I think it's hard to do that with multiple players. And let me give you another quote from this McAdams story that Cora had. And you're talking about trying to balance winning in the development we're talking about. He says there's a fine line with that. Obviously, we believe we can do both. Not sure I'm buying that he really believes that. But the one thing that's challenging, just being honest, is that transition from player development to here. Up here, every pitch matters. Every at-bat matters. Every error has its consequences. That's something in the minors. It's not like that. It's not the case. So, to me, it's kind of veiled. But I think we're getting close to the roster is the roster territory again.
So Gasper, the vicissitudes of victory.
Yes.
Okay. Been working on
kind of the whims of, you're subject to sort of the whims of fate. No.
That's one I definitely didn't know.
Did you was that just freestyle, or had you been working on
that was me, Cardi B, freestyling it. Yeah.
So I know this.
I don't like how you're talking to me. Change your vicissitude.
I know this is a loaded question, Chris, but if it means whims of fate, why not just use whims of fate?
No, because then I can't get the alliteration in,
exactly.
Matt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.